Roger and Rafa will meet tomorrow for the 32nd time. Rafa leading the head-to-head 21-10. Now, with everything going so well for Rafa, I mean, it has done pretty much all season, but right now he's got that year-end #1. He's through unbeaten to top the group. Roger's, okay, I think the end of the year has gone better for Roger than the rest of the year, but he's, you know, he's been made to work really hard here. How do you see it tomorrow, Robbie?
Well, it's interesting because last couple of times he's played Rafa, he's got duffed up, hasn't he? We saw it in, I think it was Indian Wells, where he beat him pretty comfortably, wasn't it? And of course in the final of Rome as well, where I think at one stage during the match, Rafa had won something like 21 of 26 points, and it was almost a complete whitewash. Federer didn't even look like he was part of the action. But of course, I think here a different story. He likes the bounce of the court. Rafa's forehand is not going to be as effective on this surface as what it is on a clay court, or as what it is in the desert, where it gets so much more work through the air in the desert.
But it'll be interesting to see whether this new aggressive stance that we've seen from Nadal on a hard court is more effective indoors against the likes of Federer, because where he's always struggled, when he comes up against someone like Federer who can dictate play with the serve and the forehand, Nadal's default setting is to just move further back and just get a little more defensive and just hit with more spin and drop the ball a little shorter. And of course that just allows whoever the opponent is, Federer on this occasion, to implement a very aggressive game plan. But what we've seen from Nadal this season on a hard court, which is so different to all of the other years on this particular surface, is that he stepped much further up the court. He's now trying to take the ball earlier. Milos said exactly the same, didn't he? He said he's trying to pull the trigger earlier in the rally. So he's been more aggressive. So it'll be interesting to see whether that allows him to compete with the likes of Federer on a surface and in conditions where he hasn't had a great deal of success previously.
But should he change his game style back to how he's used to beating Federer? He's had such a good record with him over the years that should he say, hold on a minute, I've beaten him so many times from back here, why shouldn't I revert back just to get the win?
It's a very good point that you make. So I guess what that means is he's got two possible ways to beat Federer now. He knows he can get back to the default setting and just make a lot of balls. But I guess if he gets in trouble playing that way, which I think he's going to do, I don't think he's going to come out all guns blazing, taking it to Federer. I think he's going to go default setting first. If he's having trouble, then I think we're going to see him step up the court.
But you've got to remember that default setting is more on a clay court.
Sure.
Now, I think the way he plays on a hard court is with aggression. Because I think Uncle Tony's on his shoulder there. Don't forget what I've told you all year. Get up the court, get up the court, get up the court. So I disagree with you. I think we will see him be a little more aggressive tomorrow. He'll know that Federer's a little tired. He'll want to make him move as much as he possibly can early on in the match. So I think we'll see him play exactly the same way he played throughout the summer on the hard court.
I mean, it's so exciting, Federer and Nadal. It's the rivalry of the decade, maybe more. Can Federer do it? Has he got enough in the tank after today's long match to come back and win tomorrow?
Well, he'll think so, which I think is great. Because earlier in the week, when he lost to Djokovic in 3 sets, he said, that's not a good result for me. I don't want to be taking sets off people. Doesn't matter how highly he's ranked or what his recent results have been. So he will still believe he can beat Nadal. He'll struggle to believe it on a clay court because he played poorly in Rome and he's had poor success against Nadal, obviously, on that surface, and we know why. But I think here, or on grass at Wimbledon, he'll still feel if he plays his very best tennis, he's in with a shot.
And you've touched on this, but you know, Roger is very comfortable indoors. Rafa has said, you know, he doesn't really want this competition indoors anymore. Thinks it's a little unfair. He's not that happy with the bounce. He's not that happy with the ball, with the court. He hasn't looked that unhappy when you've watched him play, but I mean, you know, those statistics on paper do play into Roger's hands.
Of course they do, but if he wins on Monday night, he'll say completely the opposite. Because we know that. Earlier in the week, he said, I'm not that interested about the year-end #1 ranking, you know, I'll take it or leave it. It's not a big deal. And as soon as he was able to achieve it, he said, it's one of the biggest things I've ever been able to achieve in my life. Yeah. Same thing here. He hasn't had success, and he's talking down his chances. And of course, he'd love to be playing on a clay court. We all know that. He's got very little chance of losing. But I think, you know, he's great. He's really determined to add this tournament to his CV. Boris Becker was saying the other day, it's hugely important. You're playing against your peers. It's the unofficial World Championships. It's the biggest indoor tournament of the year. So of course he wants to win.
And I just want to talk tactics for 1 second, because Paul Anakin was always saying you have to practice hitting over your backhand so that you can hit through the court into Rafa's forehand. Will Federer revert back to using more slice? It was so effective today, and now Anacon's not in his corner. Will that be a tactic for him?
Yeah, I think it's always been a difficult shot for Roger when he's taken on Rafa. Hitting that backhand through the court, it's especially for us single-handers up here by our ears, it's not easy. But the backhand slice today, you're exactly right, Ross, was incredible. In fact, he didn't bring out the knife today, he brought out the scalpel. His first 6 games, he was chiseling away at thing like there was no tomorrow. So I think that shot's going to be vitally important. And again, Rob, as you were suggesting when you were watching, you saw how low that specific shot keeps on this court. So I think it's going to be key to his success. I think definitely going to use it.
And I think the problem is if he continually hits over his backhand, that's fine if you hit it perfectly and you keep the ball nice and deep. Yeah. But you're still just neutral in the rally. But if he hits that ball heavily with the slice, drops it short, forces Nadal out of his comfort zone, up the court a little bit, and then he doesn't hit that next shot perfectly, and he goes cross court to Federer's back, and he can then dance around that and use his forehand and make good use of the open court. So I think the slice is key to victory as far as Federer is concerned.
It's going to be great. Cannot wait for that.